Welcome to a world of action, adventure, and fantasy. This is Project Luna, where stories come to life. Every episode, we bring you thrilling short stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. From epic battles to mysterious encounters, each story will transport you to a new world. If you love immersive stories, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an adventure. Ready for the journey? Let's dive in. The Blades of the Forgotten Kingdom. This story follows Lyra Volker, a skilled swordswoman and relic hunter who seeks to uncover the lost secrets of the Valoran Empire, an ancient kingdom that mysteriously vanished centuries ago.
The first chapter. The wind howled through the jagged rocks of the Neander Highlands, carrying the scent of the sea and the promise of hidden treasure. Lyra Volker stood at the edge of a cliff, her hand resting on the hilt of her sword, Silverthorn, as her piercing blue eyes scanned the horizon. Before her lay the ancient ruins of Neander, the last stronghold of the once mighty Valoran Empire. The sun was setting behind the mountains, casting long shadows over the crumbled stone walls below. Moss-covered statues of forgotten gods and crumbled towers lined the broken roads, as if the remnants of a dream that had fallen to ruin. But Lyra knew better than to think the empire was truly gone. Whispers told of ancient magic, relics hidden deep within these ruins, relics that could change the course of history. "Are you sure this is it?" Kairos asked, his voice cutting through the wind like a blade. His dark cloak fluttered behind him, his mischievous eyes glinting in the fading light. Despite his roguish demeanor, his sharp instincts had proven valuable on many occasions, though Lyra couldn't help but feel his presence was more than just coincidental. Lyra didn't answer right away, instead tightening her grip on her sword. "The map is ancient, but it's the only lead I have. These ruins are the key to the artifact I'm searching for." Kairos raised an eyebrow. "A key? That sounds like more trouble than it's worth." Lyra turned, her face a mask of determination. "Trouble is what I do best." She motioned for him to follow as she descended the rugged path toward the heart of the ruins. Each step was cautious, her senses heightened, the faint pulse of magic in the air warning her of something more than just the ruins themselves. As she reached the main courtyard, she knelt beside a stone pedestal half buried in the earth. The faint glow of runes flickered on its surface, responding to her presence. "This is it," she muttered under her breath, tracing the runes with her fingers. The markings pulsed, a language long forgotten by time. Before she could investigate further, a rumble echoed from deep within the ruins. Kairos cursed under his breath, his hand instinctively reaching for his dagger. "We're not alone," Lyra said, standing. Her eyes locked on the darkening entrance to a crumbling tower, where a pair of glowing red eyes slowly appeared in the shadows. From the darkness, a voice spoke, cold and smooth as ice. "So, you've come for the crown of Valoran." Lyra's heart skipped a beat. The crown of Valoran was the very relic she sought, said to contain the power to awaken the long-dead empire or bring about its destruction. "What is it you want with the crown?" Lyra demanded, her stance steady, her sword gleaming in the dim light. A figure stepped forward, cloaked in shadows. When the figure spoke, it was in a language older than Lyra's own. She felt the magic surge around her. "The same thing you do, perhaps. But I will be the one to wield its power, not you." Before Lyra could react, the figure raised a hand, and the ground beneath them trembled. The ruins seemed to come alive, shifting and groaning as the earth split open. Lyra's eyes widened. The battle for the crown had begun, and she had no choice but to fight her way through the ancient defenses if she wanted to survive. The second chapter. The wind howled through the ruins of Neander, an eerie wail that echoed off crumbling stone walls. Lyra Volker stood at the base of a crumbling tower, Silverthorn in hand, her body tense and alert. Her boots crunched against the gravel-strewn ground, and her sharp blue eyes scanned the perimeter. A dark figure had emerged from the shadows. Lyra's heart hammered in her chest. She knew she was not alone. That voice, she muttered to herself, the words Vespera had spoken earlier still ringing in her ears, the crown of Valoran belongs to me. A figure, cloaked in darkness, stepped forward. The air seemed to grow colder, the shadows pooling around them like ink in water. Lyra's grip tightened on her sword. "Who are you?" she called out, her voice steady despite the fluttering unease in her stomach. "Why are you after the crown?" The figure did not answer. Instead, they raised one hand. A glimmer of crimson light sparked from their fingertips, illuminating the darkness around them. Then, without warning, the figure lunged forward. Lyra instinctively raised Silverthorn, blocking the blow just in time. The force of the strike sent a jolt up her arm, but she held her ground. The shadowy figure spun gracefully, delivering a series of swift, fluid strikes. Each blow was precise, aimed at weak spots in Lyra's defense. Her heart raced as she parried and dodged, barely able to keep up with the speed of the mysterious opponent. "I don't have time for this," Lyra muttered, gritting her teeth. Her hand clenched tighter around the hilt of her sword. She knew she couldn't keep this up forever. The shadowy figure stepped back for a moment, their dark cloak billowing as if caught in an unseen wind. Lyra took the opportunity to catch her breath, trying to steady her pulse. But her opponent's next words made her freeze. "You don't understand, do you?" The figure's voice was a low rasp, dripping with malice. "The crown belongs to the true heir of Valoran. It is not for thieves or relic hunters." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "True heir?" she repeated, her confusion momentarily overwhelming her. "What are you talking about?" A cruel smile twisted across the figure's lips. "Your bloodline is more than just a forgotten legend. You are the heir of Valoran's lost dynasty. And I am here to ensure that you do not stand in the way of its rightful restoration." In that moment, Lyra's heart skipped a beat. Could it be true? Could she, an orphan raised by her adoptive father, really be a descendant of the Valoran Empire? The thought unsettled her. She had never known her true parents, and the idea of being tied to a fallen empire felt heavy, almost like a burden. But there was no time to contemplate this revelation. The figure was already moving again, charging at her with blinding speed. Lyra barely had time to react, raising Silverthorn to block the blow. But this time, her defense faltered. The figure's sword struck hard against hers, forcing her back. Her footing slipped, and she stumbled, but she didn't fall. Instead, she pivoted, sweeping her sword out in a wide arc. Her blade collided with the enemy's, sending sparks flying into the air. But the opponent's strength was overwhelming. They pushed her back again. "You're weak, girl," the figure taunted. "You don't have what it takes to wield the crown's power." Lyra's eyes burned with defiance. "No one insults me like this." She took a deep breath, centering herself. She could feel the faint stirrings of magic within her, an old power that had begun to awaken over the past few weeks. But it was still unpredictable, raw. She focused. With a sudden, sharp movement, Lyra unleashed a powerful thrust. The force of it surprised her opponent, forcing them to retreat a few paces. Seizing the moment, Lyra pressed forward, her sword flashing as she began to harness the magic within her. The shadowy figure's expression shifted, recognizing the sudden surge of power. "So, you've awakened a portion of your power," they sneered. "It won't be enough to stop me." Lyra didn't respond. Instead, she let the magic surge through her, pushing her to new heights. Her sword glowed with a soft blue light as she thrust it toward the figure. But the shadowy figure wasn't done yet. They summoned a bolt of red lightning, aiming straight for Lyra. She barely had time to react, raising Silverthorn just as the lightning struck. The impact sent a jolt through her, but she gritted her teeth, staying on her feet. "You will never control the crown," the figure hissed. "The Black Order will reign, and you will be crushed beneath it." Lyra's vision blurred for a moment, the pain of the attack searing through her body. But she fought through it. A small voice in the back of her mind whispered a warning. "If you don't end this now, you'll lose." She drew upon every ounce of strength, focusing her will. Her sword crackled with energy, the magic flowing into her limbs like fire in her veins. With a roar, Lyra dashed forward, her sword cleaving through the air with precision and speed. This time, her strike landed true. The figure let out a startled cry as Lyra's sword pierced through their defenses, the magic in the blade igniting. The shadowy figure staggered back, their form flickering, like smoke in the wind. You will regret this," the figure spat, their body beginning to disintegrate into shadow. Before Lyra could react, the figure vanished completely, leaving only a faint whisper in the wind, "We will be watching." Panting, Lyra lowered her sword, her body trembling with the effort. She glanced around, her eyes searching for any sign of danger, but the battlefield was eerily silent. Kairos stepped forward from the shadows, his expression unreadable. "You didn't waste any time, did you?" he remarked dryly, his eyes scanning the ruins for any signs of more attackers. Lyra sheathed her sword, her heart still pounding. "I don't think we're done here," she said, her voice tight. This was just the beginning. Kairos raised an eyebrow but said nothing, offering her a hand. Lyra took it, standing tall, her mind racing with the implications of what had just happened. She couldn't shake the feeling that the figure's words were more than just threats, they were warnings of a much larger battle to come. "I have to find the crown before they do," Lyra muttered, more to herself than anyone else. Kairos didn't reply, but his eyes narrowed with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Whatever lay ahead, it was clear that Lyra's journey was only beginning. The third chapter. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the barren landscape as Lyra and Kairos made their way through the winding forest path. Her breath came in ragged bursts, and her sword felt heavier than it ever had before. The fight with the shadowy figure had drained her more than she cared to admit, but there was no time to rest. Not with the Black Order hunting her. Kairos, ever the stoic presence by her side, kept a steady pace, his eyes scanning the woods for any sign of danger. He hadn't spoken since their escape from Nander, his mind no doubt occupied with thoughts of what came next. Lyra had her own questions, but none of them seemed to have clear answers yet. She couldn't help but feel the weight of their journey bearing down on her, especially after what that shadowy figure had revealed. "You are the heir of Valoran's lost dynasty." The words echoed in her mind, haunting her as the forest seemed to close in around them. "Do you believe what they said?" Lyra broke the silence, her voice quiet but urgent. Kairos glanced at her from the corner of his eye, his expression unreadable. "About the heir to the Valoran throne?" He shook his head. "I don't know, Lyra. But there's more to you than you realize. You've always known it, even if you didn't understand it." "I've never had a family, Kairos," she replied bitterly. "I don't remember anything from my childhood before my father found me. I was just abandoned." Her grip tightened around her sword, the sharp edge of frustration cutting through her words. "What does it mean that I'm some heir to an empire?" Kairos didn't respond immediately. He simply continued walking, his hand resting on the hilt of his own sword. After a long pause, he finally spoke. "Your father, the man who raised you," he began slowly, "he was a historian. I don't think you've ever really grasped the full scope of his work. He wasn't just a man who taught you history, he was looking for something." He shot a glance at her, his eyes softening. "Maybe it's time you learned exactly what." Lyra's brow furrowed. What are you talking about? Kairos didn't answer right away. Instead, he quickened his pace, motioning for Lyra to follow him through the dense underbrush. She hesitated, unsure of what was happening, but the urgency in his movements left no room for doubt. She followed, her senses on high alert. The village of Silverfield was small but bustling with activity when they arrived. It was a farming community, the kind of place where everyone knew each other and life moved at a slower pace than the cities of the Empire. The villagers seemed unfazed by the occasional stranger passing through, but Lyra could sense that their lives weren't as simple as they appeared. There was a quiet tension in the air, as if everyone was bracing for something. Kairos led her toward the village's inn, a modest two-story building with a thatched roof. The sign above the door read the Iron Hearth, its letters faded and weathered from years of use. As they stepped inside, a warm fire crackled in the hearth, and the smell of stew filled the air. The innkeeper, a plump woman with silvering hair, looked up from behind the counter. "Welcome, travelers," she said with a smile, though her eyes seemed to be searching them both carefully. "What can I do for you?" Kairos nodded in greeting, his usual composure returning. "We need a room for the night. And information." He leaned in slightly, his voice low. "We're looking for something, or rather, someone." The innkeeper's eyes flickered briefly toward Lyra, then back to Kairos. She nodded. "Of course. We've got rooms. But information, that comes with a price, you know." "Of course," Kairos said smoothly. "We're prepared to pay." The woman paused, as though weighing her options. Then she motioned for them to follow her. "Upstairs, then. I'll get you settled." Later that evening, Lyra sat across from Kairos at a small wooden table in the corner of their rented room. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the walls. She had been lost in thought, her mind still racing with the discovery of her potential royal lineage. "You were saying something earlier about my father," Lyra prompted, eager to finally understand more. Kairos took a slow breath, his fingers tapping against the edge of the table. "Your father was more than just a historian, as I said. He was researching the history of the Valoran Empire. But what most people don't know is that he was also a part of an underground group, one that sought to protect the Empire's lost secrets." Lyra leaned forward, her curiosity piqued. "An underground group? Protect what secrets?" "The crown," Kairos answered, his voice low. "The artifacts, the knowledge, the legacy of Valoran. Your father was trying to find a way to keep it hidden from the wrong hands." He paused, letting the words hang in the air for a moment. "And when he found you, he realized something. That you were the key to everything." Lyra's heart skipped a beat. "Me?" Kairos nodded. "Your father never told you, but you were always meant to be more than just a scholar's daughter. He was trying to protect you from the truth, to shield you from the dangers of the crown. But now, with the Black Order after you, it's clear you have no choice but to take up the mantle." "But I don't know anything about this," Lyra protested. "I can't be what they think I am." "You don't have to know everything right now," Kairos said gently. "But I've seen you fight, Lyra. I've seen the power that's growing inside you. You're already more than what you were yesterday. The pieces are falling into place." A heavy silence filled the room. Lyra tried to make sense of everything, but her thoughts kept spiraling back to that shadowy figure's words. "You are the heir to Valoran's lost dynasty. What should I do?" Lyra finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kairos studied her for a long moment before answering. "You need to find the artifacts first. They hold the key to understanding the crown, and only once you have them can you decide what to do with it. But we need to move quickly. The Black Order is closing in." Just then, a loud knock echoed from the door, interrupting their conversation. Kairos exchanged a quick look with Lyra. His hand instinctively went to the hilt of his sword. Lyra's heart raced. "Who's there?" A voice, soft but familiar, came from the other side. "It's me, Jareth." Lyra's eyes widened. "Jareth? What are you doing here?" The door creaked open, and in stepped a tall man with a rugged appearance, his dark hair tied back in a loose ponytail. He was dressed in worn leather armor, a sword slung over his shoulder. His expression was serious, and his eyes had the same intensity as Kairos's. "I thought I'd find you here," Jareth said with a nod. "I have news, and it's not good." Kairos immediately stood, his demeanor shifting into that of a warrior prepared for action. "What's happened?" "The Black Order found out about your little excursion to Nander," Jareth replied, his voice low. "They're coming for us. Fast. And they've brought more than just their usual assassins." Lyra's stomach tightened. "How fast?" "By morning," Jareth said grimly. "We don't have much time." Lyra exchanged a glance with Kairos. "Then we leave at once." Kairos nodded. "We don't have a choice." The fourth chapter. The night was thick with shadows as the trio moved through the narrow back alleys of Silverfield. Lyra's footsteps were quick but measured, her heart still pounding from Jareth's warning. The Black Order was coming, and they were coming fast. "I don't like this," Jareth muttered under his breath as they moved toward the edge of the village. "This feels like a trap." Kairos, ever the calm presence, glanced around cautiously. "Keep moving. We'll deal with it when we get there." Lyra's mind raced, her thoughts swirling with the gravity of their situation. She had just learned the truth about her father's secret research, and now they were being hunted by a ruthless enemy. The weight of it all was suffocating. "We can't keep running forever," Lyra said, her voice tight with both frustration and resolve. "I need answers. We need to find the crown before they do." "We will," Kairos replied, his voice firm. "But we need to survive the night first." A chilling wind swept through the village, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of danger. Lyra's eyes scanned the surroundings, her instincts telling her something was off. The village was too quiet for such a late hour, the usual sounds of crickets and the rustling of leaves eerily absent. "Do you hear that?" Jareth asked, halting mid-step. Lyra strained her ears. For a moment, there was nothing, just the sound of her breath and the faint rustling of wind. Then, it came again. A faint, rhythmic thud. Footsteps. Kairos raised a hand, signaling for them to stop. He leaned in close, whispering, "They're closing in. They've surrounded us." "How many?" Lyra asked, her hand instinctively reaching for her sword. "Too many," Kairos said grimly. "We'll need to fight our way out." Jareth pulled his sword free from its sheath, his eyes flashing with determination. "I'll take the east side. You two handle the west." Lyra nodded, steeling herself for what was about to come. She wasn't inexperienced in battle, but facing the Black Order, an organization that had been hunting her before she even knew of their existence, was different. These weren't just regular soldiers, these were assassins, trained in the dark arts, skilled in everything from stealth to sorcery. Before she could say another word, the first of the Black Order agents emerged from the shadows. Cloaked in black, they seemed to melt out of the night, their eyes glowing faintly red beneath their hoods. Their presence sent a chill down Lyra's spine. "Stay close," Kairos instructed, drawing his blade. "We'll break through their lines and head for the hills. The longer we stay, the harder it will be to escape." The enemy began to encircle them, their movements fluid, almost predatory. Lyra's grip tightened on Silverthorn, her knuckles white from the force. She wasn't about to back down now, not when her past, her future, and the lives of her friends were at stake. The first attacker lunged at her, a sword crackling with dark energy aimed straight for her heart. Lyra parried the blow with a swift, practiced movement, the shock of the strike reverberating up her arm. The force of it nearly sent her stumbling, but she caught herself, spinning to deliver a counterattack. Her blade struck the enemy's side, but they seemed unfazed, the dark magic around them absorbing the blow. The figure hissed, raising their sword again, but this time, Lyra was ready. She focused her energy, drawing on the dormant power within her that had been awakening since the encounter at Nander. "Get out of my way," she yelled, and with a burst of force, she channeled her magic through Silverthorn. A surge of blue light exploded from her sword, sending the Black Order agent flying backward with a force that left them gasping for breath. Lyra felt a brief surge of triumph, but it was short-lived. As the figure staggered to their feet, more of them emerged from the shadows, their faces hidden, their intentions clear. "We need to push through," Jareth called out from across the way. He was holding his ground against two of the agents, his movements quick and fluid. He fought with precision, but even he was struggling to keep up with the onslaught. Kairos's voice rang out, steady and commanding. "Now. Go." Without a second thought, Lyra sprinted toward the clearing on the west side, her heart pounding. The sounds of combat echoed behind her, but she didn't dare look back. Every fiber of her being was focused on one thing, survival. And the knowledge that the Black Order was only the beginning of the danger that awaited. As she reached the edge of the village, the faint outline of the forest loomed before her. She didn't stop to take in the view, instead, she kept running, her breath coming in sharp bursts. But before they could fully break free from the village, something stopped her in her tracks. A figure stood in the clearing ahead, blocking their path. It was a woman, tall and cloaked in black. Her silver hair cascaded down her back like a river of moonlight, and her eyes glowed with an unnerving shade of crimson. "You're not going anywhere," the woman said, her voice smooth and cold. She raised her hand, and the air around them seemed to grow heavy, thick with dark energy. "Another one?" Jareth muttered, barely able to mask the frustration in his voice. "Who are you?" The woman didn't answer. Instead, she simply raised her hand higher, and with a flick of her wrist, a wave of magic surged toward them. Lyra's heart skipped a beat as the energy swept toward her, freezing the air with its unnatural chill. Without thinking, she raised Silverthorn in front of her, hoping to block the magic. But the force was overwhelming. Just as the blast was about to hit, Kairos moved in front of her, his sword held out, glowing with a brilliant light. The magic collided with the sword, creating a blinding explosion of energy that sent Lyra stumbling backward. The shockwave knocked the breath from her chest, and for a moment, she could barely hear anything over the ringing in her ears. "Get back!" Kairos barked, his sword glowing fiercely as he stood protectively in front of Lyra. The woman, her face still hidden by a dark veil, chuckled softly. "You think you can protect her? You are all fools." Lyra's heart pounded as she stood up, wiping the blood from her lips. Her legs felt unsteady, but she pushed herself to her feet. The enemy was powerful, stronger than any of the Black Order agents she had faced so far. "We're not done yet," Lyra said, her voice filled with fierce determination. "And you're not going to stop me." With a cry, she charged forward, Silverthorn crackling with energy, the sword a blazing streak of blue light in the dark night. But as she neared the mysterious woman, she felt a pull, something pulling at her very soul, as if the ground itself was trying to drag her down. "Move!" Kairos shouted, his sword raised to strike. But the woman merely raised her hand, and the world seemed to freeze around them. Lyra's heart raced as the shadows twisted and coiled like serpents, threatening to overwhelm her. The woman spoke again, her voice filled with chilling finality. The crown's power is not yours to wield, girl. The 5th chapter. The air crackled with tension as Lyra stood face to face with the mysterious woman, her heart pounding in her chest. Kairos and Jareth were beside her, their swords drawn, but the shadowy figure before them didn't seem fazed in the slightest. Her silver hair glimmered like moonlight, and her glowing crimson eyes locked onto Lyra with unsettling precision. "Give it up, girl," the woman said, her voice cold and distant, like the wind in the dead of winter. "You are outmatched." Lyra's grip tightened around Silverthorn, the hilt still warm from the magical energy she had unleashed earlier. She could feel it now, that familiar, pulsing power deep within her. It was as if the sword itself was calling to her, urging her to use its full potential. But something held her back. She knew the Black Order was dangerous, but this woman, she was something else entirely. Her power was ancient, familiar, almost as if Lyra had encountered it in her dreams. "What do you want from me?" Lyra asked, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. She wasn't going to back down, not now. Not when she had finally begun to understand what was at stake. The woman tilted her head slightly, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "What I want," she said softly, "is what you carry. The legacy of Valoran. The crown." Lyra's pulse quickened at the mention of the crown. She had heard its name only in whispers, myths and legends her father had spoken of in hushed tones, but now it felt real. Too real. "You think you can control it?" The woman's voice was sharp, mocking. "You are just a pawn, a puppet to forces you cannot comprehend." Lyra's brow furrowed. "You think I don't know that? You think I'm not terrified of what I'm becoming?" The woman's eyes flickered briefly, almost as if she were amused. "Terrified? You should be. The power of the crown is not something to be wielded lightly. It consumes, it corrupts. You will become no different than those you seek to fight." "I'm not afraid," Lyra said, her voice rising with confidence she didn't entirely feel. "I'll face whatever comes. I'll stop you, whatever it takes." The woman's smile faltered, and in that instant, she raised her hand, a surge of dark energy crackling toward Lyra. But before the attack could hit, Kairos lunged forward, his sword intercepting the blast with a flash of blinding light. "Run," he shouted at Lyra. "Go, now." In that split second of distraction, Lyra broke into a sprint, her mind racing. She didn't want to leave Kairos behind, but she knew there was no other choice. The Black Order was after her, and if she stayed any longer, they would all die. She had to find a way to stop this madness once and for all. Jareth followed close behind her, his eyes sharp, alert to every movement in the shadows. "We've got to make it to the hills, Lyra. The pass is just ahead. We'll lose them there." But the woman was not far behind. Her figure blurred in the darkness as she gave chase, her laughter like the ringing of a bell, cold and hollow. "You think you can escape me?" she taunted. "You will never outrun your destiny." Lyra didn't respond. Her lungs burned, and her legs ached, but she pushed forward, knowing the fate of everyone she cared about hung in the balance. After what felt like hours of running, they reached the edge of a narrow mountain pass. The cliffs on either side rose steeply, blocking any pursuit. Lyra could feel the weight of the night pressing down on her, but the adrenaline kept her moving. She glanced back to see no sign of their pursuer for the moment. "This is it," Jareth said, his voice low and urgent. "We need to rest. Regroup." Kairos stopped at the edge of the pass, his sharp gaze scanning the path ahead. "No time for rest," he said. "We're not out of danger yet." Lyra collapsed to her knees, panting, the exertion of the chase taking its toll. "We can't outrun her forever," she said, her voice strained. "That woman, she's powerful. Too powerful." We know, Kairos said, his tone grim. But we can't let her catch us. We have to keep moving. I don't even know where we're going, Lyra admitted, frustration edging her words. What do we do next? What's the point of running if we don't have a plan? Kairos crouched beside her, his expression softening for just a moment. We go to the ruins of Valoran. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. The ruins? You mean the lost city? The capital? Yes, Kairos said, standing again. It's the only place left where we can find answers. Your father knew the location before he died, and now it's up to us to finish his work. Jareth looked at them both with concern. You sure about this? The Black Order won't stop. They'll be after us the entire way. I don't care, Lyra said, standing up, her voice strong now, her resolve firming. We go to the ruins. I need to understand the crown and what it means for me. What it means for all of us. The journey to the ruins was treacherous. As they traveled deeper into the mountains, the air grew colder, the terrain more unstable. But even as the landscape became harsher, Lyra's mind was focused on one thing, the crown. Her father had spent years researching it, speaking of its power and its dangers. He had hidden his findings from her, perhaps to protect her, but now it seemed that all the secrets she had longed for were within her reach. The crown was more than just a symbol of power. It was a weapon, a key to unlocking an ancient force that could either save or destroy everything. And as much as Lyra feared what she might discover, she couldn't turn back now. After several days of grueling travel, they finally reached the outskirts of the ruined city. The ancient stone structures, half buried in overgrown vines, stood like silent sentinels, a reminder of the once great empire that had crumbled beneath the weight of its own ambition. This is it, Kairos said, his voice reverberating with awe and caution. The heart of Valoran. Lyra stood at the threshold of the ruins, her heart pounding in her chest. The place felt alive, as if the very earth was whispering its secrets to her. There was a feeling here, a presence, that Lyra couldn't explain, but it seemed to beckon her forward. Without a word, she stepped into the ruins, the echoes of the past filling her senses. She could almost feel her father's presence here, as if he had walked these very streets. And then, she saw it. At the center of the ruins, a massive stone door loomed, its surface etched with symbols Lyra couldn't understand. But there was one symbol she knew all too well, the same symbol that had haunted her dreams. It was the mark of the crown. This is it, she whispered, her voice trembling. The crown is inside. But as they approached the door, a dark presence seemed to descend upon them, and from the shadows, the woman in black appeared once more. You're too late, the woman said, her voice cutting through the air. The crown belongs to the Black Order. The 6th chapter. The ruins of Valoran stood like the bones of an ancient beast, its towering stone structures crumbling under the weight of centuries. The air around them felt heavy with the presence of forgotten secrets, and Lyra could feel the tension tightening in her chest. The woman in black was standing before them once more, her crimson eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. You're too late, the woman's voice was a low, cold murmur, carrying a finality that sent a chill down Lyra's spine. The crown belongs to the Black Order. Lyra's heart thundered in her chest. She could feel it, the pull of the crown, the energy calling to her from behind the massive stone door. She didn't know how she knew, but it was as though the door itself recognized her presence. She stepped forward, her hand instinctively reaching toward the door, but the woman's voice stopped her. You don't understand, do you? The woman's laughter was soft, almost mocking. You think you can control the crown, wield its power, but you'll only bring about your own destruction. Lyra's grip tightened on Silverthorn, the familiar weight of the sword grounding her in the moment. She couldn't let the woman's words cloud her resolve. She had already come too far to turn back now. You speak of destruction, Lyra said, her voice steady despite the fear rising in her chest. But it's your order that brings destruction. I'm not like you. The woman's eyes narrowed, her expression hardening. You truly believe you are different from us? That you are the exception? She stepped forward, her cloak swirling with dark energy. The crown doesn't care about your morals, your choices. It chooses its own, and you are its next victim. Before Lyra could respond, the woman raised her hand. A pulse of dark magic surged toward her, sharp and unrelenting. Lyra instinctively swung Silverthorn in front of her, the blade crackling with blue energy as it intercepted the magic. The force of the collision sent a shockwave through the ground, throwing Lyra off balance. Lyra! Jareth shouted, rushing to her side. Are you okay? I'm fine, she said quickly, her breath coming in short gasps. She steadied herself, locking eyes with the woman in black. We can't let her stop us. The crown is the key. You're playing with forces far beyond your comprehension, the woman sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. The crown will break you, just as it did to all those before you. Lyra shook her head, her determination solidifying. Then we'll face whatever comes. Together. Kairos stepped forward, his stance steady as he locked eyes with the woman. We're not afraid of you. You're not the first to try to control the crown, and you won't be the last. The woman's lips curled into a smile that was anything but reassuring. Then let's see if you're worthy of it. Without warning, she lunged forward, dark energy swirling around her like a storm. Her movements were swift and precise, a blur of shadows that seemed to bend the very air around them. Lyra barely had time to react as the woman's strike came crashing down. Silverthorn met the woman's magic in a brilliant flash of light, but the force was overwhelming. The power that surged from the woman's strike was unlike anything Lyra had ever felt, cold, suffocating, and filled with a twisted kind of strength. Lyra staggered backward, the ground beneath her cracking with the intensity of the magic. She could feel the dark energy trying to consume her, threatening to drag her into the same abyss the woman had come from. But Lyra wasn't alone. Kairos and Jareth were right behind her, their swords raised in defense. Together, they formed a shield, their combined strength pushing back against the woman's assault. She's too strong, Jareth said through gritted teeth, his sword glowing faintly with the energy he had imbued into it. We need to outlast her, give Lyra a chance to unlock the crown's power. Stay focused, Kairos said, his voice grim but resolute. Lyra, you have to get to the door. We'll hold her off. Lyra's pulse quickened. She nodded quickly, not waiting for another word. She turned and sprinted toward the massive stone door, her feet barely making a sound as she moved through the ruins. The air seemed to hum with energy, pulling her forward. As she reached the door, she hesitated for only a moment before placing her palm against its surface. The stone was cold beneath her skin, but as her touch lingered, a warmth began to spread through her, and the door began to vibrate, as though it were awakening from a long slumber. The woman's voice echoed through the ruins, dripping with malice. You think you can control it? You'll never survive what's behind that door. The crown will consume you, and you will become no different than those who came before you. Lyra's hand tightened around the stone, her breath shallow as she pressed harder. I won't be afraid, she whispered to herself. I won't let you win. There was a deep rumble as the stone door began to shift, the ancient mechanisms inside it groaning to life. Lyra felt a surge of energy flood through her, a powerful force that felt like it was both a part of her and something entirely separate. The door creaked open, revealing a long, dark hallway, the air thick with the scent of decay and ancient magic. Lyra's heart raced, but she didn't hesitate. She stepped into the darkness, Silverthorn glowing faintly in her hand as she moved forward. Behind her, the battle between her companions and the woman in black raged on, but Lyra knew this was the moment she had been waiting for. The crown was within reach, but she had no idea what lay beyond the door. All she knew was that she had to face whatever came next. The hallway stretched endlessly before her, the walls adorned with faded carvings and strange symbols. As Lyra walked deeper into the ruins, she could feel the weight of the crown's legacy pressing down on her. Each step felt heavier, as if the very earth beneath her was trying to push her back. She reached a set of massive stone doors, their surface covered in intricate symbols that seemed to pulse with a faint light. Lyra could feel the crown beyond these doors, its power calling to her, urging her to continue. With a deep breath, she reached for the doors, but just as her fingers brushed against the cold stone, a voice echoed through the chamber. "You are not ready," the voice whispered, its tone both comforting and terrifying. Lyra froze, her heart hammering in her chest. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice trembling slightly. A figure emerged from the shadows, draped in a cloak of gold and crimson. Their face was obscured by a mask, but their presence exuded an ancient power that made Lyra's knees weak. "You are the chosen one," the figure said, their voice calm and serene. "But the crown will not yield to you easily. It will test you." Lyra felt a chill run down her spine. "I'm ready," she said, though her voice wavered with doubt. "I have to be." The figure nodded slowly. "Then prepare yourself. For the trials have already begun." The 7th chapter. The figure in the cloak of gold and crimson stood before Lyra, their presence as commanding as the ancient stones that surrounded them. For a moment, she simply stared at them, her heart racing with uncertainty. There was something about this person, a calmness in their voice, a wisdom in their posture, that made her feel both comforted and apprehensive at the same time. "You are the chosen one," the figure repeated, their voice echoing in the hollow chamber. "But you are not yet ready to wield the crown's power. Before you can claim it, you must face the trials." Lyra swallowed hard, the weight of their words settling heavily in her chest. The crown was closer than ever, its power calling to her, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that it was a dangerous lure. What would these trials demand of her? And could she survive them? "The trials are not just tests of strength or magic," the figure continued, their voice steady. "They are tests of your heart. Of your will. Of your very soul." Lyra took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I've come this far. I won't back down now." The figure gave a slow nod, as if expecting this answer. Then, they stepped aside, revealing the massive stone doors behind them. The symbols etched into the surface of the doors pulsed faintly with an eerie light, as if they were alive. As Lyra approached, she could feel the air growing thick with anticipation. "Enter," the figure commanded. "And face the first trial." Without a word, Lyra stepped forward, her hand resting lightly on the cold surface of the door. As soon as her fingers made contact, the stone groaned and began to shift. The massive doors opened with an otherworldly sound, revealing a vast, darkened chamber. The air inside was still, almost suffocating, but the faint glow of magical runes illuminated the far end of the room. Inside, a figure stood alone, bathed in the light of the runes. At first, Lyra thought it was just an illusion, but as she stepped closer, she saw it was a woman, a familiar face. Her hair was dark, her features sharp and regal, and her eyes glimmered with an intensity that Lyra could not ignore. "Father?" Lyra gasped, taking a step back. The woman smiled, a haunting, bittersweet smile. "I am not your father, Lyra," she said, her voice resonating with an unnatural calm. "I am the reflection of your deepest fears. Your doubt." Lyra's breath caught in her throat. Her father had died years ago, slain in the battle that had set her on this path. But this woman, this apparition, looked like him. She was like the figure Lyra had seen in her dreams, the one who had whispered her name in the dark. "No," Lyra whispered, shaking her head. "This is a trick. You're not real." "Am I?" The woman's gaze softened, her expression becoming almost pitiful. "What if I am? What if I represent everything you fear? The doubts you've carried since you first picked up the sword. The question of whether you're truly worthy of the crown." Lyra's heart pounded as she stepped forward, trying to shake off the unease creeping through her veins. "You're just a reflection of my mind. A manifestation of my own insecurities." "Am I?" The woman's voice was laced with sorrow. "What if everything I say is true? What if you are destined to fail? You are not strong enough to carry the crown. You are too weak, too inexperienced. You will crumble under the weight of its power." Lyra's vision blurred as the woman's words wrapped around her like chains. Her knees felt weak, and for a moment, she thought she might fall. The trial had already begun, and this vision, this voice, was twisting her from the inside. "Father would never say that," Lyra said through clenched teeth, her hands shaking at her sides. "You're not my father." The apparition of her father stepped closer, her eyes filled with a hollow sadness. "Then prove it, Lyra. Prove that you are worthy of the crown. Overcome your fear, your doubts, and show me you have the strength to carry this burden." In that instant, Lyra's mind was filled with a flood of memories, the day her father had died, the feelings of helplessness, the years of training in the hopes that she could one day live up to his legacy. She had never fully understood her father's sacrifice. Had he truly believed in her? Or had he, too, doubted her? "Enough!" Lyra shouted, her voice echoing through the chamber. "I won't be swayed by fear. Not anymore." The woman's face twisted, disappearing into a dark mist that evaporated into the air. The weight on Lyra's chest lifted, and for the first time, she felt a flicker of confidence. The chamber around her began to fade, and a new light emerged, this one more golden and warm. The trial was over. Lyra stepped through the shifting darkness, feeling both exhausted and invigorated. As she emerged from the chamber, the figure in gold and crimson was waiting for her, their expression unreadable. "You have passed the first trial," the figure said simply. "Your doubt has been confronted, but the journey is far from over." Lyra nodded, wiping sweat from her brow. "What comes next?" The figure's mask seemed to tilt in curiosity. "The next trial will test your heart, the choices you will make, and the people you trust." Before Lyra could respond, the chamber around her shifted again, the ground beneath her feet trembling. The walls seemed to melt away, and she found herself standing at the edge of a vast chasm, the winds howling around her. Across the chasm, a path appeared, lined with glowing stones leading into a thick fog. "Cross," the figure said, gesturing to the path. "You must trust the path ahead, despite the dangers you may face." Lyra hesitated, eyeing the deep chasm below. The fog seemed to shift, as if alive, and the air was thick with unease. Was this a test of her ability to trust her instincts? Or was it a trap, designed to test her judgment? As she looked to her companions, Kairos and Jareth, who had appeared behind her, they, too, seemed uncertain. Jareth's brow furrowed in concern. "This path doesn't feel right." But it was Kairos who spoke, his voice calm yet firm. "We're with you, Lyra. Trust your instincts. We'll make it through together." Lyra swallowed hard, her heart racing. She knew this trial would be different. The next step wasn't just about facing her fears, it was about trusting those around her, about relying on the bonds she had forged through this journey. With a deep breath, she stepped forward onto the glowing path. The 8th chapter. The path before Lyra was narrow, the stone beneath her feet slick with an eerie mist that rolled up from the chasm below. Her breath quickened as the fog thickened, making it difficult to see beyond a few steps ahead. The air was oppressive, filled with an unshakable sense of unease. Each footstep echoed in the vast emptiness surrounding her, and for a moment, she wondered if she had made the right choice. "Stay close," Kairos said, his voice breaking the silence. His hand hovered near the hilt of his sword, his sharp eyes scanning their surroundings. Jareth, just behind her, didn't look any less tense. "Something's wrong with this place," he muttered under his breath. "It's like we're being watched." Lyra nodded but didn't say anything. She could feel it too, the heavy presence of something unseen, lurking just beyond the veil of mist. But this was the path. The crown had already given her a taste of its power, and she couldn't turn back now. "Are you all right?" Jareth asked, his voice low but concerned. He looked at her with a mixture of worry and determination. Lyra met his gaze, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "I'm fine. Just trying to stay focused." The path ahead seemed to stretch endlessly into the fog, each step feeling like they were walking further away from reality. Lyra's thoughts raced, but one thing stuck with her, Kairos's words. "Trust your instincts." But it wasn't just her instincts she had to trust. The trial had already told her as much. The crown wasn't just testing her strength, her heart, it was testing her trust in others. In her companions. "You know we'll always have your back," Kairos said, his voice steady as he caught up to her side. Lyra glanced at him, surprised by the sincerity in his words. Despite the overwhelming atmosphere around them, Kairos remained unshaken, his focus on the journey ahead. The bond between them was undeniable. But was it enough? Could she truly rely on them when the stakes grew higher? The fog parted suddenly, and Lyra felt a jolt run through her. Before them stood a stone archway, its intricate designs glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. Beyond it, a vast chamber unfolded, its walls lined with towering statues, warriors frozen in time, their eyes lifeless, their expressions set in eternal vigilance. "Another test," Jareth whispered, stepping forward cautiously. "What's this?" A voice, soft but clear, echoed in the chamber, coming from all directions. It was feminine, with a deep, resonant quality that reverberated through the stone walls. "To pass this trial, one must make a choice," the voice intoned. "A decision that will shape your future. What you decide will determine if you are worthy of the crown's power." Lyra frowned, her heart racing. "What kind of choice?" The voice grew softer, almost sympathetic. "A test of trust. You will be shown what you desire most, what your heart craves above all. But know this, in this chamber, not everything is as it seems. The one who offers you what you seek may not be who they appear to be." The mist thickened again, swirling around Lyra's feet like a living thing. For a moment, the world around her seemed to shimmer, distorting as if the very fabric of reality was bending. And then, she saw him. Her father. He stood before her, his tall form clad in the same worn armor she remembered from years ago. His strong hands gripped a sword, his expression fierce but loving. His familiar, comforting presence filled the space between them, and for the briefest moment, Lyra's heart skipped a beat. "Father?" Lyra whispered, her voice thick with emotion. The man who appeared before her smiled, his eyes filled with warmth and affection. "I'm here, Lyra. I've always been here. You've come so far, my daughter. You are destined for greatness, to claim the crown and bring peace to this broken world." Tears stung Lyra's eyes. She had spent so many years longing for this moment, yearning for the chance to hear his voice again, to see him once more. But even as the overwhelming sense of nostalgia and love filled her chest, a nagging doubt lingered in the back of her mind. "Is this real?" she whispered. The figure of her father reached out to touch her cheek, his touch warm and gentle. Everything you've ever wanted is within your reach, Lyra. The crown will be yours, and you will have the power to restore everything you lost. You can finally end this war, avenge my death, and lead the world to peace. All you have to do is trust me. It was everything Lyra had ever wanted. But at that moment, something inside her stirred, a deep, instinctive feeling that something wasn't right. The voice from the chamber spoke again, softer this time, almost a whisper. The choice is yours, Lyra. Will you trust the one who offers you your greatest desire? Or will you trust your companions and the path that lies ahead? Lyra blinked, and the image of her father flickered like a mirage, disappearing before her eyes. She found herself standing on the edge of a vast precipice. Kairos and Jareth stood beside her, looking at her with concern. The fog swirled around them, making the distance between them and the world beyond seem vast. You can't let it control you, Lyra, Kairos said, his voice steady. You've come this far, and you can't give in now. We need you. Jareth's hand rested lightly on her shoulder. Trust us. We're not going to let you go alone. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest, torn between the memory of her father's words and the reality of her companion's presence. The choice was agonizing. Could she let go of the past, of the dream of restoring what was lost? Was she ready to walk this path with those who stood by her, to trust them completely? She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, pushing away the image of her father. The crown was not about power or revenge, it was about the future, the world they could build together. She opened her eyes, her gaze meeting Kairos's and Jareth's. The fog began to dissipate, the path ahead becoming clearer. I trust you both, she said, her voice firm. We'll face this together. The voice from the chamber fell silent. The fog parted fully, revealing the path ahead, and Lyra knew, deep in her bones, that this was the right choice. Her trust in her companions, in the people who believed in her, was stronger than any illusion. A doorway appeared before them, glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. The trial was over. The 9th chapter. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness as Lyra stepped forward. The chamber before her was vast, stretching high above with walls covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly with an ancient light. Unlike the previous trials, the room was devoid of mist, but the silence was deafening. It felt as if the very stones were holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. Kairos and Jareth flanked her, their faces set with determination, but even they seemed uneasy. Lyra could feel the weight of their gazes, their unspoken questions, but she knew they wouldn't ask her to turn back. They had come this far, and they would face whatever lay ahead, together. We're almost there, Lyra murmured, more to herself than anyone else. Her hand instinctively brushed against the hilt of her sword, and she felt the familiar comfort of the weapon's presence. But her heart was heavy with the thought of what might come next. This trial, unlike the others, had been shrouded in secrecy. The others had warned her that this would be the hardest of all. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, upon which rested an ornate chest. It was made of dark wood, carved with intricate patterns of ancient runes. The chest itself seemed almost alive, pulsating with a quiet energy that was both alluring and ominous. The third trial, Kairos said, his voice low and careful. What's inside that chest, Lyra? Lyra's gaze was fixed on the chest, her heart racing. I don't know, she admitted. But the crown is waiting for me, and I know I have to face this. You've already come so far, Jareth added. No matter what happens in this chamber, we're with you. Lyra nodded, taking a deep breath. Let's do this. As she approached the chest, the room seemed to hum with a strange energy, and the symbols on the walls began to glow brighter. She reached out, her fingers brushing the surface of the chest, and as soon as her skin made contact, the lid creaked open. A wave of powerful magic surged through her, causing her to stagger back. From within the chest, a light blazed brightly, almost blinding her. It took a moment for her to regain her bearings, but when her vision cleared, she saw the source of the light, an orb of pure energy, floating above the chest. The orb was radiant, shimmering with hues of gold and silver, its power so immense that it seemed to warp the air around it. At the center of the orb, she saw something else, a crown. But this wasn't just any crown. It was an ancient, twisted version of the one Lyra had sought, its design far more sinister, covered in dark runes and pulsating with dark energy. A voice echoed through the chamber, deep and resonant. It seemed to come from every direction at once. To claim the crown is to embrace power beyond your comprehension, Lyra. But remember, every power has its cost. Are you willing to pay the price? Lyra's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just a test of strength or courage, it was a test of her very soul. What do you mean? She asked, her voice steady despite the rising tension. The voice answered, its tone laced with an eerie finality. The power you seek will come at a cost. The crown's magic can heal nations, topple empires, and reshape the very fabric of existence. But those who wield it must sacrifice that which they hold most dear. The more you seek from the crown, the more you must give up. Power is a double-edged sword, Lyra. What will you sacrifice to wield it? Lyra's mind raced. The vision of her father, the longing to avenge his death, to restore peace, to end the war, it all rushed back to her. The desire to see the world healed, to protect the people she loved, it was all within her grasp. But the price? What must I sacrifice? She demanded, her voice cutting through the heavy silence. The orb shimmered, and the voice responded, the one closest to you. The one who trusts you above all else. In exchange for the crown's power, you must choose to lose them forever. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, and for a moment, everything went still. Lyra's blood ran cold. Her mind flashed to the people she cared about, her friends, her companions. Kairos and Jareth. They had come so far with her, fought by her side, risked their lives. No, she whispered, shaking her head. I can't. You must, the voice insisted, growing louder, more insistent. The crown demands balance. To gain immense power, you must give up something of equal worth. Choose, Lyra. Who will you sacrifice? Lyra took a step back, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't lose them. She couldn't lose Kairos, whose unwavering strength and loyalty had seen her through her darkest moments. She couldn't lose Jareth, whose kindness and compassion had kept her grounded when everything seemed lost. But she knew the truth of what the crown demanded. I won't do it, she said firmly. I refuse to sacrifice them. A deep rumbling filled the chamber as the light from the orb flickered. You refuse? Very well. But know this, Lyra, the crown's power will remain out of your reach. You will leave here with nothing but the weight of your choices. The orb began to pulse more violently, its energy swirling into a blinding vortex. The pedestal trembled as if it were about to crumble beneath the pressure. Kairos and Jareth reached for Lyra, their faces etched with concern. Lyra! Jareth shouted, grabbing her arm. We're with you. No matter what the crown demands, we're not leaving each other. Kairos nodded firmly. We don't need the crown's power. Not if it means sacrificing each other. The orb's light intensified, but Lyra stood her ground. She could feel the weight of the decision bearing down on her, but in the end, she knew there was only one truth that mattered, they were her strength. Not the crown, not the power it promised, but the people she trusted, the bonds they shared. Power isn't worth losing what truly matters, Lyra said, her voice steady and unwavering. I don't need this power if it means losing them. With a final, defiant gesture, Lyra reached out and closed the chest, shutting away the pulsating light. The rumbling ceased. The chamber fell silent once more. The voice echoed one last time, softer now. You have passed the trial, Lyra. The crown's power is not yours to claim. But you have proven something far more important. The strength of your heart, the loyalty to those you hold dear, is a power greater than any crown. The orb's light dimmed, and the pedestal collapsed into dust. The chamber returned to its original, eerie stillness. Lyra felt a weight lift from her shoulders, a sense of relief flooding through her. She had made her choice, and it was the right one. Lyra turned to face her companions. Kairos was the first to speak, his voice quiet but filled with admiration. You did the right thing, Lyra, he said. We're in this together. No matter what. Jareth nodded, his expression softening. You don't need the crown to change the world. You're already doing that with us by your side. Lyra smiled, a bittersweet relief filling her chest. I've learned that power isn't about what you can take, it's about what you're willing to give. And together, they stepped into the next chapter of their journey, knowing that no matter what lay ahead, they had each other. The 10th chapter. The world felt strange. The air, once thick with tension and uncertainty, now felt unusually light, as though the very fabric of reality was holding its breath. Lyra stood at the edge of a precipice, the sheer drop below stretching into a swirling abyss of endless clouds. Behind her, Kairos and Jareth were standing at the ready, their expressions set with unwavering determination, but they were also silent, watching her with a look that spoke volumes. The last trial. It was said to be the hardest of all, the one that would reveal who Lyra truly was and what kind of ruler she would become. The path ahead was lit by the faint glow of ancient stones embedded in the ground, leading into a vast chamber where the crown awaited. But this time, the crown was not just an object to be claimed, it was a presence. A force that seemed to ripple with power, as if aware of Lyra's every step. It was a throne made of glowing obsidian, and on it, the crown shimmered with an ethereal light, beckoning her closer. This is it, Lyra whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. Are you sure about this? Kairos asked, his voice a calm but concerned whisper. His hand rested on the hilt of his sword, but there was no threat in his posture, only the weight of the decision Lyra was about to make. She turned to him, her eyes meeting his steady gaze. I'm sure. I've come this far. We've come this far. Jareth was quiet beside her, his eyes soft but resolute. Whatever happens, we're with you. No matter what the crown demands. Lyra nodded, but the weight of the moment felt unbearable. Her fingers clenched at her sides, and for the first time, she felt the immense responsibility of the journey they had been on. The weight of the crown was more than just its physical presence, it was a burden on her soul, a choice that could change the world, for better or for worse. As they approached the throne, the air seemed to ripple, and a voice, not unlike the one from the previous trials, echoed through the chamber. It was deep and resonant, almost ancient in its tone. Lyra, it said, and she felt the sound reverberate within her very bones. You have proven yourself worthy of this final trial. But know this, the crown offers more than power. It offers the chance to reshape the world, to fulfill your destiny. However, such power comes with a cost. A choice. A sacrifice. Lyra stepped forward, her heart hammering in her chest. She knew what was coming. She had heard the whispers of the trial, rumors of the terrible choice the crown would demand. But she wasn't ready. She couldn't be. To claim the crown, the voice continued, you must give up what you hold most dear. Not just your desires, not just your fears, but the very thing that defines your identity. What will you sacrifice to rule the world? Lyra's breath hitched. The crown's words hung in the air like an inescapable fate, forcing her to confront the impossible. What could she sacrifice? The light around the throne intensified, and suddenly, images began to flash before Lyra's eyes, visions of her homeland, ravaged by war, her father's death, the faces of the people she had sworn to protect. She saw Kairos, always by her side, offering support and friendship, Jareth, whose laughter had been the first light in the dark days. But then, the faces of those she loved began to fade, replaced by the vision of the throne itself. It was as if the power of the crown was reaching for her, calling her, willing to do anything to make her its own. To gain everything, the voice intoned, you must give up that which defines you. What will you choose, Lyra? The world, or the people who stand with you? Lyra's chest tightened. No, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I can't choose between them. I can't. But then, a soft voice interrupted her thoughts. It was Jareth. You don't have to choose, Lyra, he said quietly, stepping forward. We've been through too much together for you to make this decision alone. If the crown demands a sacrifice, then let that sacrifice be the crown itself. We don't need it. Lyra turned to him, her heart swelling with emotion. But we came here to save our world, Jareth. This power, it's what we need. No, Jareth interrupted gently, his hand on her shoulder. What we need is you, Lyra. You're not just a ruler. You're our friend, our sister in arms. You've already done more than anyone could ever ask. Power is not what makes you a hero. Your heart, your choices, your sacrifice, that's what defines you. We've always been with you, and we will be, no matter what. Don't let the crown steal what you've already earned. Kairos stepped forward, his eyes fierce but filled with understanding. We're not following you because of power, Lyra. We're following you because you lead with courage, compassion, and integrity. That's the kind of leader the world needs. Tears filled Lyra's eyes as she looked at both of them, their unwavering support, their belief in her, overwhelming her. She felt her heart swell with the realization that they were right. She had sought the crown's power, thinking it was the only way to save her world, but now she saw the truth. The real strength lay not in the crown, but in the bonds they shared, in the sacrifices they had all made together. I've learned so much, Lyra said softly, her voice filled with conviction. I thought I had to do this alone, that I had to sacrifice everything for the greater good. But the truth is, it's not just about me. It's about all of us. About what we can accomplish together. A smile tugged at the corners of Kairos's lips, and Jareth gave a quiet nod of approval. Lyra turned toward the throne, her heart heavy but resolute. The crown was powerful, yes. But it was a symbol of something that no longer mattered. She didn't need it. She stepped forward, the ground beneath her feet glowing with each step, and with a single motion, she reached for the crown. But as her fingers brushed the surface of the dark, shimmering metal, she withdrew her hand. I don't need it, she said, her voice strong. I choose us. The room was silent, and for a moment, nothing happened. The air hung still, and then, the glow from the throne began to fade. The overwhelming presence of the crown seemed to dissolve, as though it had never been there at all. The voice, now softer and filled with warmth, echoed one last time. You have passed the final trial, Lyra. The world will be saved, not by the power of the crown, but by the strength of your choices. You have chosen what truly matters, those you love and the bonds you share. The chamber began to glow with a soft light, and the once oppressive air lightened. Lyra felt a weight lift from her shoulders, the burden of the trials gone. She had made her choice, and it was the right one. The world would be saved, but not by the crown's power. As she turned to face her companions, she felt a surge of hope like she had never known before. No matter what lay ahead, they would face it together. And with that, the world outside the chamber began to change.